Alright, this will be a video about the curse that supposedly haunts the Poltergeist movies, which there are a million articles and documentaries out there about this Poltergeist curse. It's very well known, but hopefully I'll have a few pretty eerie things about this supposed curse that you may not have heard of before. So most are probably familiar with the Poltergeist curse that's talked about with these movies. Dominic Dunn, who played the oldest sister in the movie, was murdered right after the first one was released, and Heather O'Rourke, who played the little girl, died later on at only 12 years old. The first Poltergeist came out in 1982, and strangely, there is a poster for the 1988 Super Bowl in the children's room in the movie, which was obviously 6 years in the future. It's just very random that there would be a poster for the 1988 Super Bowl in a movie that came out in 1982. But incredibly, the 1988 Super Bowl, Super Bowl 22, it happened on January 31st, 1988, and January 31st, 1988 was the exact day that Heather O'Rourke got sick and then she died the next day. So obviously, that is just borderline incredible, really just unbelievable that there would be a poster for a Super Bowl 6 years in the future in the children's room in the movie that just happens to be the exact date that Heather O'Rourke got sick and then died the next day. And there's other stuff too, like weird things people experienced on the set. There's a bunch of stuff out there about how Poltergeist might be cursed. But even more than the first movie, the second Poltergeist movie has some really incredibly creepy things going on with it. And some of what I talk about here will be taken from a post from this site, Crazy Days and Nights, which is a site that's supposedly run by a Hollywood insider. And he posts messages that he receives about celebrities and the entertainment industry. It's all insider type stuff. There's a lot of posts about the dark things that go on behind the scenes in Hollywood. So it's just an anonymous post. It might be true, it might not, but a lot of the things that have been talked about on Crazy Days and Nights over the year really do line up with a lot of the things that have been revealed in the Epstein files and about the Diddy parties. And there have been just some incredible posts over the years on Crazy Days and Nights, and one of the honestly most interesting posts I've ever seen on this site has to do with Poltergeist 2. So in the movie, there's this really creepy old man who's the human form of the evil spirit that haunts the family in the first movie. He's played by an actor named Julian Beck. There's also an Indian shaman played by an actor named Will Sampson, and Will Sampson did grow up in an Indian tribe, and he was actually a shaman in real life. And the Crazy Days and Nights blind has to do with these two. I'll just read the post here and then talk a little bit about it. So the post says, this character actor had a big role in a franchise. Other than that, he did small roles in some movies and television, and he was especially big in theater. While filming what would be his final role, he was caught with two young boys who were the sons of crew members visiting for the day. Apparently, all three of them were undressed and in an empty trailer. This was not the first time the actor had been caught with young children. He had been caught during a previous role a year earlier, which saw his part reduced to a line or two because he was kicked off the set. After the two boys were removed from the trailer and reunited with their respective parents, the actor was told that he would be fired and replaced. The actor knew they wouldn't do that, though. Too much filming had been completed and they needed him around. So our actor decided to be even more horrific and posted hundreds of Polaroids he had taken of naked children and thumbtacked them to the walls of his trailer. He also had audio recordings of his time spent with many of the children, and he would play them on a loop at a really loud volume. Anyone who would pass near his trailer would be able to hear, and it shook people to their core. One actor on the set had enough, and calling on his heritage, spent 3 days calling on his gods to do something to the horror that had invaded the set. Within a month, the child molesting actor was dead. There are some who say he came back from his grave to exact his revenge, because within a year, the spell-making actor was also dead. And it's revealed that this is about Julian Beck, Will Sampson, and Poltergeist 2. And what's pretty crazy is this does line up with some things that actually happened in real life. About a month after the movie finished filming, Julian Beck did die of stomach cancer, and then about a year after the movie came out, Will Sampson also died. He had gotten really ill after filming the movie, and he died after receiving a heart and a lung transplant. So that's obviously pretty creepy. I will say that Julian Beck already had stomach cancer when the movie was being filmed. He'd been diagnosed 2 years earlier, so he was already sick. But for both of these people to die right after the movie filmed is pretty interesting, especially in light of what's talked about with the Crazy Days and Nights post. And there are also some other things with this story that do make you wonder if it is legit. As I mentioned, Will Sampson was a shaman in real life, and a bunch of the actors talked about how Will Sampson did perform a cleansing ritual on the set of Poltergeist 2 during filming.
It was a very difficult set. And I remember it had very low ceilings, and people kept running into things and banging their heads, and cameras falling.
People tripping and falling, people getting sick. There was a lot of electrical stuff going on, I remember.
There was reels running out, there was camera jams. The film was somehow I don't know what it was doing, but it was blanking out when they were like processing it.
The first day we shot footage, the footage didn't turn out at all. It was black. And
the studio was really happy about that.
Skeptics argue that it could have been a exposure to sunlight. Given the professionalism on the set, I'm not certain that those explanations could have occurred. That type of fogging is very typical of poltergeist phenomena.
Actor Will Sampson had fears of his own.
So we were on that soundstage for a long, long time, and things were not going well. We were getting way behind. So Will went in and he felt that there was some alien spirits that were upset, and he detected it in the skeletons that were there.
The special effects department then revealed a shocking fact. The skeletons used in the movie were real.
He said there is peculiar energy in this set, and I can't go on much longer. I need an exorcism. I think these skeletons somehow contain something. This set needs an exorcism.
And Will said, well, just make sure they leave the stage door open for me tonight, and I'll come back and I'll take care of it. And he says, the spirits are not happy. And so we said, all right. And when we told the security that they had to leave the stage door open for Will Sampson so he could come and, do a blessing on the set, they rolled their eyes, but they accommodated us.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, Sampson entered the Poltergeist soundstage and performed an exorcism.
Whatever it was, it worked, and there wasn't any problem after that. Now, that's what happened. So, I don't know. Yeah, me.
So this cleansing ritual that they talk about had to do with the bad vibe that they claimed that they felt on the set. They later learned that real human skeletons were being used in the movie, and they thought that that might have had something to do with the eerie feeling on the set. And then Will Sampson performed a cleansing ritual late one night, and they claimed that it worked. So Will Sampson was clearly involved with rituals and communicating with the spirit world, so it's not completely far-fetched that he might have performed another ritual on the set, like what's talked about in the Crazy Days and Nights post. And there's also some interesting things about Julian Beck. He founded a theater group in 1947 in New York City named the Living Theater, and this was just a really bizarre theater group that existed for decades. Their productions were known as just being very controversial and over the top. A lot of their plays just sound totally bizarre. He was arrested multiple times for not paying taxes and on minor drug charges. Then he was exiled to Europe, and he and a group of 40 people that included 9 children just wandered around Europe like nomads and performed plays in parking lots and wherever they could. He was married, but him and his wife had an open relationship, and they even shared lovers. Both he and his wife were involved with an actor named Ilian Troya and with another man named Lester Schwartz. And then obviously with Heather O'Rourke, there have always been rumors that she was severely abused as a child, like a lot of child actors are. So like I mentioned, the Crazy Days and Nights post is anonymous. It's not verified, so take it with a grain of salt if you want to. I will say one thing I do find pretty strange is, like I mentioned, there are just a trillion articles and documentaries about the poltergeist curse out there, and a vast majority of them don't even mention this Super Bowl poster. They talk a bunch about the deaths associated with the movie and the strange things that the cast experienced on the set, but they never mention the synchronicity with the Super Bowl poster date and Heather O'Rourke's death, which is really odd because the way these dates line up is probably the strangest part about this supposed poltergeist curse. So I did think this was an interesting little side note to the poltergeist curse and the strange deaths surrounding these movies. Let me know in the comments if you have any sort of thoughts or theories about some of this, because I just find it all really interesting and very strange. I especially find the Super Bowl poster just really baffling, and I've never really seen any sort of possible explanation for that out there on the internet. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments.